on this weekend's protest, let me turn to Medea Benjamin. She's one of the founders of the peace group Code Pink. Medea, you've been in Congress nearly every day demanding a ceasefire. Do you plan to take part in Saturday's protests?
Absolutely. I'm very anxious to be part of the protest, and especially in front of the Israeli embassy. And I think there will be huge numbers of people throughout the country, and it's a global day of action, so it will be happening in many places around the globe.
Do you think these types of protests, they certainly send a message, but at the end of the day, do they make any difference in changing policy?
I think they all add up to a change in policy. It's quite remarkable that no elected official in this country can barely go to a town hall meeting or a fundraiser or speak at a think tank without getting confronted by protesters. There are people that are camped outside the home of Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. There are protests at the home of Congress people all over, as well as when President Biden is home, there are protests there. It is happening everywhere. I happen to be doing them in Congress, and we are joined by people who are coming not only from D.C. and the outlying regions like in Maryland and Virginia, but people come in from all over the country. They fly in from California. Somebody drove today in from Delaware. They take the train in from New York. So do these add up? Yes, they do. Is it quick enough? No, this should have been stopped months and months ago. But let's remember that the U.S. support for Israel is very ingrained in U.S. politics. President Biden has been a supporter of Israel for decades, and so have many of the people in Congress who take money from the pro-Israel lobby groups. So this is unfortunately a slow process, but it is changing, and we see the changing public opinion, which is very important that the younger generation says no to this.
We've also seen
change.
Yeah, and we've also seen really extreme acts of protest with this young 25-year-old airman, Aaron Bushnell, who died after setting himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy. I mean, what does that tell us?
That tells us that there are people who feel a sense of betrayal, a sense of despair that our government is not representing. You look at the opinion polls and they show that 70% of the people want a ceasefire, and yet we are not getting that. We also see that the American public doesn't want to keep sending our money to Israel, our weapons to Israel. And Aaron Bushnell was part of the Air Force that's been providing intelligence and all kinds of other services to the Israeli military. He said, "I will not be complicit in genocide." And I think there's many of us that feel a sense of despair. We do not want to be complicit in genocide.
And Medea, Israel, of course, on October 7th, suffered its worst terror attack. 1,200 people were killed. Is there a same level of empathy or sympathy or even outrage for what Hamas did to these 1,200 civilians, innocent people who were killed that horrible day? Or it seems a lot of the sympathy and outrage is going towards the Palestinians. I mean, yes, and the death toll is staggering. 30,000 have lost their lives in Gaza. There is unimaginable human suffering and pain. But the Israelis would say they too are hurting and suffering.
We want to stop the killing. We want to stop the suffering. And right now, the ones who are being killed every single day are being killed with U.S. bombs, U.S. bullets. And now the Israelis are using another method, which is hunger. And that is affecting hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, there's over 1 million people who are facing starvation right now. They're also dying from curable wounds. They're dying from preventable diseases. This is a level of suffering and catastrophe that we have not seen in many of our lifetimes. And so, of course, there are people who say what happened on October 7th is terrible, but let's look at what's happened every day since then, and let's look at what has been happening for the last 75 years. And I think the American people are starting to wake up now and understand the oppression with which the Palestinians have been living for decades and are starting to understand that there will never be peace for anyone in the region. And I'm Jewish myself. I want peace for the Jewish people. And I think the only way that will happen is if there is justice for the Palestinians.
And that was my next question to you as a Jewish American. How are you coping with what's going on? And do you get a lot of criticism and pushback from fellow Jews and people in Israel?
Well, certainly we do, but we also get a lot of solidarity from the Jewish groups that are very active here in the United States, like Jewish Voice for Peace, If Not Now, who have been organizing some of the massive protests that have been happening. So there's a change in the Jewish community, and especially a change among the younger generation. And I think that is what the little bit of hope that we have is, that this is also a generational shift. And it will also affect the elections. And I think the Democratic Party is starting to really shake in its boots around this, seeing what happened in Michigan, recognizing that this could be a very close election and they could lose because of the position that they have been taking on this issue.
All right, we'll leave it there. Medea Benjamin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.